Hey gang, Captain Jim here. Hopefully you enjoyed today's show. Had Captain Jonathon Moss on with me this morning. And of course our producer Paul, always doing a great job in the studio here. And you guys and gals, have fun out there on the water and enjoy this show. It's a good one. You're going to appreciate what we've got coming for you today. Hey guys and gals, welcome. It's another edition of Catch a Memory Outdoors right here on WWBC 1510 AM. We appreciate everybody tuning in every Saturday morning to listen to what's going on up and down the Space Coast. I'm your host, Captain Jim Ross, and we appreciate you tuning in right here on the 1510 AM signal. Of course, you can get us at 99.9, 94.7, 100.7, catchamemoryoutdoors.com, Captain Jim Ross on YouTube, and, of course, good morning to those of you that are out there watching us on Facebook. So good morning. I want to give you guys a big wave out there. I'm like I said, I'm Captain Jim Ross. This is Catch a Memory Outdoors. We're going to do this for the next 2 hours for those of you that are just joining us for the first time. Got Captain Jonathon Moss from the Captain's Log / what's the name of your charter business?
Go Castaway Fishing Charters.
Go Castaway Fishing Charters.
Yeah.
So, Jonathon, this is your second time in the studio. Appreciate you coming back in.
I learned from that first time. I brought a hoodie, got some pants on. It's freezing in here.
We hang deer in here when we're not
Might
doing
as
the radio show. I tell you, man, it's cool. It is chilly in here, but we want to say good morning to those of you guys and gals that are out there. And if you want to get involved with the show, we'd love to hear from you. 321-632-1000. You can give us a call right here on the call-in line in our Cocoa studio, Cocoa, Florida. It's interesting. I was looking last week, and oftentimes during the show, like right now, I'm setting up my phone, and I'm kind of sharing the show to different outlets on Facebook. And so I'm looking at a couple of these sites, and I'm like, well, man, there's people they're from all over the place, that tune in to listen to the show. So it's really cool that the show's growing and being able to spread the word about the fishing here on the Space Coast all over the place. Now, some of those guys are people that may winter here, guys and gals, may winter here, and now it's summertime, so they're back up in their home up north.
But they're still checking in. They want to see what's going on.
Yeah, still seeing what's going on down here, because you never know. I mean, if you got a place in Florida and you've got a place, somewhere else, well, hey, if the fishing's hot, let's go for a couple of days.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's kind of neat that just looking at all of the different places that people are watching, tuning into the Facebook feed from. And so we really appreciate you guys and gals doing that. So thank you so much. And then, of course, the radio feed basically covers the East Coast. You guys over in St. Cloud, can you hear us? You guys down in Melbourne, even all the way down to Vero first thing in the morning. Vero's kind of a stretch. It's more like Sebastian. But once the sun pops up and we go to full 50,000 watts, then we're transmitting a pretty good way down the way. We're getting down there. Just so you're pushing down towards the Palm Beaches. In fact, in some cases, that's the interesting thing about the AM portion of the signal. Obviously, the streaming feed at catchamemoryoutdoors.com and the Facebook feed is worldwide. Anybody in the world can see this thing, hear this thing, but the AM signal it's one of those anomalies that you don't know. Next door at the Cocoa Police Department, they may not be able to hear us one day, but somebody in Saskatchewan can. It's just how all the stars and moons and everything seem to line up with the AM signal. It's interesting. But I get people listening to the show and commenting that, hey, I was so and so. I was somewhere, and I was able to hear the show on the AM signal, and it's kind of baffling to me that sometimes you just shake your head and go, "Wow, that's pretty neat."
Every once in a while, you see those billboards that say, the best way to reach people is through the radio. So many people are watching on TV, or so many people are online, but there's still a huge number of people who listen in on the radio.
It is amazing to me how many people do actually listen to the radio. I know. I mean, that's everywhere I go. I'm listening to the radio, one form or another. One station or another. Yeah. So it is still a valid form of communication, and it's probably going to stay that way for some time. Jonathon, we were, let's tell you what, for the guys and gals out there that don't know who you are, what you do, let's tell them who Jonathon is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been a full-time guide here on the East Coast, and I also guide in Orlando for bass. So we do bass fishing in Orlando and then inshore fishing here on the East Coast and the Space Coast. Doing that for 9 years full-time. Grew up in Orlando. My parents bought a place in Cocoa Beach when I was just a little kid, so I've been coming back and forth out here my entire life. So I have 2 homes. I'm very blessed to have 2 homes, Cocoa Beach and then in Orlando, and growing up doing both styles of fishing. So I'm very, very blessed in that sense. Also host the Captain's Log. We're getting ready to launch our 6th season of the Captain's Log.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I love it when people tell me I'm never going to make it in doing something. I had people tell me I'd never make it as a guide. I had people tell me I'd never make it as a TV show host. And here we are hitting season 6 and season 9 of guiding full time. So whenever someone tells me I can't do something, man, that's the worst thing you can do to me because it just lights a fire on my butt, gets me going. We're getting ready to launch season 6 next Saturday. You can watch on Waypoint TV. If you're not familiar with Waypoint, Waypoint is a free app.
Yeah.
It's full of great content, both fishing and hunting, and is downloadable on any device, your phone, your tablet, your smart TV, Roku Fire Stick, Apple TV.
So what's interesting is I'm not really good at downloading this, that, and the other, and then going and finding it. So the way that I watch Waypoint is I bought a package through Fubo.
Okay.
So Fubo is my provider, I guess you would say. And then they have all of the different shows under that Fubo format. And so I was previously a Spectrum kind of a person, and I just got tired of that, them upcharging you for everything that you actually wanted to watch and giving you for an exorbitant price everything that you didn't want to watch. And so it got to the point where, basically in my mind, they priced themselves right out of my market. I could no longer afford to stay with Spectrum. And so I started searching for alternatives, and I started looking around. And now this is a year and a half ago or so. And so I started looking around, and at that particular time, and I probably should check again because there's always something new coming up. But at that particular time, Fubo had the FS1, FS2, Bally Sports,
all the channels are going to host
Waypoint,
stuff.
Outdoor Channel, World Fishing Network, all of these things that I like to watch. Plus, it had some of the local content. It had the local 2, 6, and 9 stations out of Orlando, the ABC, NBC, CBS channels, basically. It had the local Fox 35 station on it. And some discoveries and some different things. My wife loves to watch, all these home improvement things. Why, I have no idea, because I got no clue how to do a home improvement thing. It's just that
she wants you to watch with her so you can learn.
Yeah, but she loves watching, and so. But anyway, long story short, Fubo created a package that was appealing to myself and my wife, and so we pay for that streaming service, but we get Waypoint through that.
Awesome.
And so, in addition to all of those other channels, so I have been watching a ton of Waypoint TV, and I'm going to be honest with you. 4 years ago, I didn't even know you had a television show. Okay, but now through Waypoint TV, I've been able to watch a lot of your episodes and really enjoy the content.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you watching.
Yeah,
we launched May of 2020, so we're just over 4 years old. And we're getting ready to launch our 6th season. We've been hustling. When this season ends, we'll have done, really, in a calendar year, 2 full seasons, which is a lot of content, a lot of traveling.
You got a lot shot this year.
Absolutely. And as soon as this season ends, we're going to pick right back up and go out on the road and start filming again. And we like to cover the Southeast. We're visiting this season a couple of stops in South Carolina. We're going to be in Georgia later on in the season, and then the rest are going to be here in Florida. But we branch out, from Texas all the way up to the Carolinas, because there's just so much good fishing here in the Southeast, inshore, nearshore, offshore.
And some of the things that I don't think get covered enough, and I've been thinking about this recently because it didn't really interest me before. But some of that north, so Chesapeake Bay through, say, Martha's Vineyard.
Okay.
That kind of northeast striper, fluke, rockfish, bluefish kind of a scenario for the inshore guys. I've started watching a couple of different shows in that area. And what's interesting to me is, here we are. So you've been fishing your whole life.
Fish my whole life.
Consider yourself a competent fisherman. I've been fishing my whole life. I consider myself a competent fisherman. I consider myself to be, I've gone on the professional redfish tours, the professional kingfish tours. We've won, multiple times in these various events, and or placed in top finishes. So I feel like when I pit myself against the other 100 boats in the field, I'm pretty confident about my skill set.
Right.
I watch some of these shows and the way that some of these guys are doing things, and I'm like, wow, why didn't I think of that? And so I always think to myself, man, there is so much to learn. I've been doing this full time now, 27 years. September will be 27 years in 3 months. And that's guiding full time. I guided part time for 2 years before that, and then I've been fishing here my whole life. But I look at different techniques that different guys use, and I'm like, man, that's really cool. I wonder if that would work in this scenario.
Absolutely.
On this type of fish. Because if you think about it, let's take black drum as an example. Okay, black drum are a great example of a fish that has become very prominent in our fishery in the last 5 years. Before then, it was there.
They're around.
But you had redfish and trout and other things to chase, and and so they weren't the main focus exactly. And so you'd look at those black drum and you go, "Oh, there's a school. Let's go pull over and see if they'll eat." Well, the last 4 or 5 years, because they have almost been exclusively our flats target, look how much your learning curve has changed how you fish those fish.
Absolutely.
You learn, because every time you fish them, you learn something new. And so black drum as an example, in January and February and March, the black drum are typically at the bridges. They're in the deeper water scenarios. They're around Haulover Canal. They're around the deeper sections down in the south end of the Mosquito Lagoon.
And we're fishing them a specific way.
Exactly. And then they go, "Oh, okay, I'm going to go up on the flat today." It's April or May or whatever, and all of a sudden there's a school of them up on the flat.
Yep.
And you fish them a totally different way.
Totally different way. Absolutely.
And so I look at some of these shows and just think to myself, do not ever let yourself get locked into one thing, because there's always something else that may potentially, not always, but may potentially work better on that particular day or in that particular instance.
Absolutely.
Because like you said, we fish black drum from 12 inches of water to 12 feet of water. And then I've even here the last 2 years, myself and my son, we found a couple of spots offshore where we are consistently targeting them and catching 20, 30, 40 fish in a half-day trip, because they're schooled up in these giant schools. And so those are the fish that don't transition up and down from basically from Florida to the Carolinas and Chesapeake and that area, and then back down. Those are the fish that aren't transitioning north and south. These fish are transitioning in and out.
Well, so there's a common theme here. You've mentioned the word learn several times.
Yeah.
Okay. If you are going to a fishery and you think you've got it figured out, you don't.
Don't.
You're wrong.
You're
it's a constant
exactly right.
Every day we're learning more. Even though we're on the water every single day, we're learning every single day. And having the mindset of, I'm going to learn something from this. Even if it's a terrible fishing trip, right? You can still learn from that.
Exactly.
When I travel up north, my in-laws, they recently just relocated, but they were up in South Dakota. Every time we go to South Dakota, there's a store up there called Shields. Giant fishing hunt store. I look for things that they use to catch fish up there that I can use down here, especially for like the baby tarpon. Because these baby tarpon, man, they're chasing glass minnows. I want a lure that mimics that glass minnow that I might not be able to find here at my local tackle shops. And every time I do that, I travel up there, I find something different simply because we're willing to learn. And you've said that multiple times, and you said it, you're a competent fisherman, but yet you're still, after 30 years of guiding, you're still willing to learn.
Yeah.
And that's the key to becoming a great fisherman.
Well said. Well said. Well, guys and gals, we'd love to hear from you. Captain Jonathon Moss from the Captain's Log is in with me this morning. I'm Captain Jim Ross. We are going to take our first break of the day, but you can give us a call, 321-632-1000. That's 321-632-1000. Give us a call. We would love to talk with you this morning right here on the air live at Catch Up Memory Outdoors. We're going to be right back after this break. Jeff Brewer this morning, Butch McCoy. Hopefully your weekend is starting off just fine. Bo Berger on. Brooklyn Mowry is on this morning. Greg Lund, good morning, Captain. Lots of guys out there. David Giovannini's on with us. Sean Scribner's on with us as well. Kyle Weaver, good morning. Glad you're feeling better and out of the hospital, brother. I know that that wasn't. So I didn't realize. So Kyle got sick. They put him on a ventilator.
Wow.
Intubated him with a breathing device or something.
Wow.
So, man, that's serious.
That's real serious.
So
glad he's doing better and listening in.
Glad you're doing better, and hopefully you can get back to chasing those marlin around the Madeira and Canaries and Azores here real soon. But yeah, I mean, just hit him out of the blue. Apparently, I didn't realize that. We were at dinner the other night with Jeff Kranick and Blair Wiggins and the rest of the crew that we kind of duck hunt with, and Jeff was saying, yeah, Kyle, they had him on a ventilator or something. I was like, whoa! I knew he was sick, but I didn't realize he was that sick.
Yeah. So
glad that you're doing better, brother, and able to watch the show this morning on Facebook. Want to let you know this segment of the show is brought to you by Lamb Deck, and so so here's an example of the kind of quality that you can expect from Lamb Deck. Okay, so I didn't realize this, but if you let your boat sit out in the sun for an extended amount of time in the heat, and you keep it clean, okay, you can get this sort of a intensified light effect on the product, okay? It doesn't happen when it's on the water, okay? So when you're on the water and the boat's, moving around, rocking with the waves and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't have a chance to do it. But if it's sitting on the trailer at the house, and like in my case, it's in the side yard and it's on the side away from the wind. It's on the west side of the house, so we typically get an east or southeast breeze. So you can get this scenario where the sun angle gets just right, and the sun is hitting directly on the padding, and then also the sun is hitting against the side of the inside of the gunnel. And we always use the Starbright non-skid deck cleaner and deck wax in there and keep it nice and shiny, glossy kind of a finish, if you will. Well, you get this little magnification effect, almost the way that you would like burn a leaf with a magnifying glass when you were a kid, and intensify the sun's heat, and it'll make a little spot. Huh. Sometimes it can even make it kind of melt and peel just a little bit. So I called up Jaden at Lamb Deck, and I'm like, hey, I'm not sure what's happened. It almost looks like I got some kind of a chemical spill or something. I'm not really sure what happened here. And he's like, kind of looks like it's melted a little bit. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, this is what it was. I'm like, oh man. I'm like, well, he goes, do you have a cover? Or can you put it under shade? Or I'm like, nah, I don't really, because where I'm at, there's a power line, and they won't let me put any kind of a shed or anything because it's under the power line. And he's like, okay. And he goes, you know what? No problem. Bring it up here. Took it up. They pulled up the old piece, put the new piece on.
Took care of you.
Took care of me.
That's awesome.
I'm like, that's going above and beyond. Yeah. That's not something that they really should be trying to have to warranty. And I just went, you know what? That's pretty darn cool. Pretty darn cool. So not only, are they warrantying for manufacturing defects, installation defects, whatever it happens to be, for the lifetime of the product, but even in this particular instance where something happened that's out of your control, really, they still took care of it for me. And so I just want to say thank you so much to the guys up there at Lamb Deck. And if you guys are looking for an EVA non-skid, give them a shout. They're up in Titusville. They're real easy to find. They're right off of Grissom Road on White. And just go to lambdeck.com or give them a call, 321-505-4888. And they had, the guy that owns Roswell, they do like audio, like wakeboard racks and wakeboard towers and audio systems and all that kind of stuff. Roswell down in Rockledge. They had one of the head guys at Roswell. They had his boat up there doing his whole boat in the lamb deck. They had probably, man, I'm going to say 15 boats in there getting ready to get done. So
Nice.
we're in the meat of the season, if
Yeah.
you will. So I would say that if you're looking to get some, you need to get on the list pretty quick. But yeah, give them a call. Just fantastic product. I've been really happy with the product, and I can't say enough about it. So 321-505-4888. Give them a shout up there at Lamb Deck and get some of that on your boat. You're going to be impressed.
Jimmy, you were talking about good reach on the Facebook feed. There's a good morning from Corey out of Charleston, South Carolina. Just proving your point that we got a reach here. And we just got finished filming an episode up that way. Talk about a fun fishery in the low country.
That tide is I mean, you think you go to Jacksonville and you think, oh, it's a 3.5 to 4 foot swing, 4.5 foot swing. You go to Fernandina and it's a 5 to 6 foot swing. You get up there, it's like a 7 foot swing.
Yeah, and if you haven't fished a flood tide, man, that is so much fun. I absolutely love fishing a flood tide.
So when those redfish push up into that Spartina, be honest now, the first time you were there, if it happened the way it happened for me, I kept hearing about it. Oh, the fish tail in the Spartina. They tail in the Spartina. Once the grass gets flooded, they tail. And I'd fished up there a couple of times, but they weren't flood tide scenarios. And so it was one of those things where I was like, okay, I've got to really experience this. And I was up there pre-fishing for a tournament. This was back when the FLW and the Redfish Cup were going. And I was up there pre-fishing, and I'm saying, these guys are talking about these fish getting up in places where they don't normally go. And so I'm pushing in on my boat, and at the time I was running a 22 Pathfinder. So I was really scared I was going to get hung up somewhere, but I kept going and I kept going and I kept going. And pretty soon I'm in areas that haven't had water to them in months.
Yeah.
Like months.
It was dry land a few hours ago.
Yeah. And like weeds and trees and things growing that don't normally grow in the water. You can tell that this is non-water type vegetation, but the water's now flooding up into it. And I remember there was a bunch of Spartinas, kind of sparse, and then there was this little open sand patch. And I'm looking over there, and I'm like, man, the water's clean. I can see everything in the sand patch. And then all of a sudden, a redfish swims across the sand patch. And I'm thinking,
wait a minute.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
I'm in the right zone.
It's about to happen.
I'm seeing a fish. And then within the next 30 to 40 minutes, it was kind of a short window. But in that next 30 to 40 minutes, it looked like a headstand competition.
Yeah.
There was tails everywhere sticking up out of the Spartina grass. And it was so cool to sight cast to an individual fish who wasn't focused on a bait swimming by. He's looking at the ground at a crab or a whatever, I'm assuming it's a fiddler crab. He's looking down, and we're throwing these little orange, they were assassin shrimp. They used to make an orange with a white belly, and it called it boiled shrimp or something like that. Pinkish orange kind of a color, but it matched the colorations on the fiddler crabs. And so I'm throwing these rigged weedless and dropping it right on their head and watching their gills flare as they suck that thing in.
On it.
Just boom, and it reminded me of like the wrestler coming off the top ring rope with the elbow, Dusty Rhodes style back in the day. I mean, going with the atomic elbow, pounding this thing into the mat. They just pound at that crab, and it's explosive. It's a violent scenario, and it was so cool to see that amount of aggression and that amount of intensity being put into feeding on a specific thing. And I mean, it was so amazing to me that where there was land, where there was air 2 hours earlier, I'm now not only catching fish, I'm floating in a boat catching fish.
Yeah.
In this scenario. I mean, it was crazy.
Two things can happen. You'll get the fiddler crabs that are walking on the ground, and they're going to start crawling up the grass, trying to be out of the water.
Yeah.
And you also get shrimp, depending on where you're at. Shrimp will move in. So I'm thinking like Mayport up in Jacksonville area, the low tide or the low country up in the Carolinas, they have a lot of shrimp come in. You'll get these shrimp up on the surface, and you'll hear them. If it's quiet enough, you'll hear the redfish almost like a tarpon slurping and popping
That's
up on the
cool.
surface. We threw frogs, like a bass lure frog,
Okay.
up on the surface, and would watch the redfish just V after it, like pick their heads up and go, whoa, and come up and smash it. Dude, that is fun. That is so much fun. And then the South Carolina
So
side.
now you're telling me I got to go back and
You gotta do it, man. You gotta do it. You know, have your little orange shrimp thing ready, but get that frog out there, dude. Like, going back to your bass roots, man. That is so much fun. I
bet.
love a flood tide. It's
That
it's
is-
probably my favorite style of sight fishing for redfish.
Well, the thing is, you don't have to convince the fish
No.
that it's time to
Exactly.
eat. They're already there. They're in
And
the
they're
zone,
not
in
spooky.
the mood.
No, you hit them in the head, they're going to be spooky,
Yeah.
but they're not spooky because they're in the zone. They're in the mood to eat.
Yeah.
They're there to eat, and the fish know. They know when that water gets high enough and they push off, and they know when that water's dropping and they
Yep.
start moving out. So they got a window of time.
They're just little short window that
They're
have.
taking advantage.
Yeah, that's
and if you're
so
going to be up
cool.
there in a bay boat, you better take advantage too. Get out when you have the chance because you don't want to get stuck. But it is absolutely a blast and probably my favorite style of redfish.
I'm gonna have to. So now I got to go back.
Do it. It's worth it.
Well, let's go to the phone lines and see who's on the line. Oh, you know what? Let's take our break real quick because we're at the 7:30. Let's go ahead and get our break out of the way, and that way we'll have a chance to talk to Mike for a while. So we're going to be right back after these messages with myself, Jonathon Moss, and Captain Mike Mann calling in from Mosquito Lagoon. Don't go away. Catch Your Memories coming back at you. This segment of the show is brought to you by the guys and gals over at Sun State Pest Management. If you have a pest problem, obviously, give Sun State a call. Don't take it on yourself. Let them come in. Let them see what kind of problem you have, and let them put the proper type of product down to kill or get rid of that particular type of pest. That's what they do. That's what their technicians come out and assess your situation and make sure that they put just the right amount of product and the right type of product to get rid of your pest problem. They're super easy to get a hold of. 800-781-7378. That's 781-7378. And that way you don't have a bunch of product laying around the house that potentially your kids or dogs or whatever can get into that you don't need to get into it. That way you keep those kids and fur puppies, fur babies, and all that other stuff nice and safe. We're going to go to the phone lines. We've got Captain Mike Mann on the line right now, and it sounds like Mike's got somebody sight casting at something.
Nope. We are pig fishing, and we just not got a nice trout. And I tell you what, I've got part of the greatest generation on my boat. I have got 99-year-old Mike on the boat fishing with me. Man.
Wow.
Awesome.
And the fish are doing the ones letting his grandson and son eat. Catch fish, but they're being a little sneaky on him.
Gotcha. Now, Mike, you're a little muffled right now.
Sorry, man. I'm trying to take a fish off and hold the phone with my ear. And
Oh, that's multitasking.
That's a good problem right there, buddy.
So we're pig fishing this morning. You giving those tarpon a break, huh?
Yep. Give the tarpon a little bit of a break. I did just get a report. They were everywhere this morning up in some of the areas I've been fishing. And probably get back on them tomorrow.
Gotcha.
It's just, this weather this week has not been tarpon conducive.
No, it's not been anything conducive other than getting you wet and blown around. Until yesterday.
Yeah.
Yesterday it finally
was
straightened
so
out.
nice.
Yeah.
They were
Finally.
wrong with the weather, but it was nice.
Yeah. I'm glad they were wrong in
Oh,
the right
glad.
way. So
Absolutely, for once.
So Mike, you pig fishing this morning. You must be working some grass flats somewhere.
Yes, sir. Yep, working some grass flats. I'm up here on Tiger right now and seeing what I can get done and kind of multitasking a little bit. And got one bait that likes to swim in the grass. And you have to get eaten. So.
Yeah. Now, you were talking about schools and pods of redfish here the last couple of weeks. And then, of course, still had some black drum around. Are you still seeing that?
They're here. You're not seeing them as well. Not seeing them as well because, it's been overcast and we had We had, 3 days, 4 days of 20-plus knot winds.
Yeah.
So we weren't able to do a lot of sight casting, but I have seen the schools pushing a little bit. And this has been corporate charter week. It's, I think, 3 corporate charters I did this week,
Gotcha.
which is probably what brought all the bad weather in.
Well, of course. Anytime you have a multi-boat event,
Yeah. But it's kind of nice. It's nice out this morning. We got a different wind direction. It's a little bit. It's almost southwest, due west to southwest right now, and it's a nice breeze, but it's kind of blowing off everywhere I've been fishing all week.
Yeah, because it's been so hard out of the east.
Needed a break.
Well, how about your water level? Is it come back up with this full moon?
Oh, it's crazy high right now. I was trying to find one of the oyster bars I like to fish, and just couldn't find it. It was so, usually it's only a few inches below the water. It's probably a foot below the water this morning.
Gotcha.
But I'm looking at the forecast next week, and it looks like it'll be light wind almost all week.
Oh, let's hope so. I've got trips every day, and I'm tired. Like this past week, I canceled, let's see, Wednesday, Thursday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we canceled trips that were supposed to be offshore trips. We got a Monday, a Tuesday, and a Friday run in the flats, though. So it just tough between me and Justin trying to get everybody out, and just all this rescheduling and then rescheduling and then rescheduling because it hasn't quit blowing. I'm just over it. I'm ready for some 1 foot at 9 seconds, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's been. Sorry, guys, if I get muffled, I'm trying to net a fish.
Yeah, we need that traditional summer pattern to kick in and get started. Slicked out. We're swatting flies in those CMs in the morning, sweating right when you walk out the door at 4 a.m. That's what we need. And then those thunderstorms roll in the afternoon.
Yep. Get off the water by 12.
Oh, it's a catfish. Catfish. Pull back this way so we can get off Mike's line.
I love listening to this. That's awesome to me. It's like, watching a football game and hearing the commentators talk about it.
Yeah, that was me, Mike. Sorry. Of course, I'm on air and we get a giant sail cat to eat. And you know what those sail cats do? They run through everybody's line. They possibly can.
Yeah, I tell you what, if you enjoy catching sail cats, there's no shortage in the Indian River right now. I spent some time Monday, Tuesday, and then yesterday.
One sail cat, and I just moved.
Yeah, trying to tarpon fish, in some of my tarpon locations, and good grief. But yesterday, we were talking before the show, Jonathan, the bull sharks really showed up in that one spot really good. So that's a bonus.
Yeah.
But there's still some sail cats running around there too.
I don't know what it is, but when I find the big tarpon in the river, you're gonna find a lot of catfish.
A lot of catfish.
They like to be together. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know if the catfish are trying to come in and pick up the scraps that the tarpon might be throwing out. I don't know, but we'll get them on the surface, and I like throwing topwater at those big tarpon. And, man, you'll get blown up by a 10-pound sail cat.
Yep.
What in the world,
what
man?
In the world's going
on? Oh, yeah, they're bad about eating the fly, too. You're throwing fly at a big tarpon, stripping, all of a sudden the line goes tight, they set it, and you're waiting for the jump, and it's like, oh, that's a catfish.
Yeah.
But, I'm hoping this week, despite this big full moon, I'm hoping the tarpon are going to be back on. I got the report that they were sick this morning. And sick for me tomorrow.
Well, let's hope so, buddy, because it's that time of the year, and all of us love catching those tarpon. So hopefully it'll.
Prior to this, from last weekend to the Monday was the last decent tarpon day I had, and then it just got so windy. You weren't seeing them. You were marking them, but you couldn't get them to eat. They just weren't really doing much.
Yeah.
But the trout bite was really good. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, it kind of slowed down for all of us. And I ended up doing pretty good on redfish yesterday, though.
Well, that's hey, if you got to swap something out, at least you didn't swap it for hardheads.
Exactly. It beats the whisker biscuit. So
yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Jonathan, I keep trying to catch your show and I keep missing it, and I don't spend enough time on the internet anymore to get in there and find.
Well, that's the best thing about the app. If you can download that app, it's 24/7 on demand. You can watch whenever you want.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That Waypoint TV app. Yeah.
Mike will actually be up your way in the New Smyrna area on Tuesday. We're going to be filming a tarpon show, so don't beat him up too much between now and Tuesday.
Nope. That's fine. I'll be. I think I might be out Tuesday tarpon fishing on my own. I think I'm actually off that day. So
nice.
You going to be on the beach or?
Well, it depends on what the wind's doing. So if the wind can lay down, then we'll be out on the beach side, and then we're going to come in as when that tide changes and hit on the inside.
Nice. Yeah, it should be I think the wind's supposed to be nice.
Well, we'll see, man. You know that weather, man. He never gets it right around here.
I don't trust him. I don't trust him. Well, buddy, we're going to let you go. How does somebody get a hold of Captain Mike Mann and do some fishing?
Yeah, I actually have some days open next week. You can give me a call at area code 386-295-5991. You can go right to my website, fatfishguide.com. Follow me on Instagram, CAPT Mike Mann with 2 N's. And follow me on Facebook, Fat Fish Guide Service. Guys, get out there and catch a memory.
You too, brother. You too. Thanks for the call this morning.
All right, sounds great. Jonathan, give me a call, and I'll hook up with you on Tuesday, let you know what I'm finding.
Sounds like a plan, brother. Thank you.
Take care. Hey, gang, we're going to go ahead and get this next break out of the way. When we come back, we got a whole lot more with myself and Captain Jonathon Moss. So don't go away. Catch your memories coming right back. Ingle Coolers. If you haven't checked out Ingle Coolers, you got to check them out. IngleCoolers.com. Soft sides, hard sides, waterproof boxes, bait containers. I mean, I love my bait container. I can't say enough about that thing. I use it more and more and more, especially this time of the year. Water temp in the lagoon is 85 to 90 degrees. I can keep the cooler temperature at 60 to 65 by putting a frozen water bottle in there, letting the aerator run, keeping my shrimp frisky, and but it's a whole lot. There's a huge difference between pulling a shrimp out of 62 degree water, putting it on a hook, and casting it in front of a fish, and one that's been sitting in 90 degree water in a bait well, getting swirled around by the bait well pump, and casting that in front of a shrimp, or casting that in front of a fish. It is night and day difference, the reaction that you get out of the shrimp and out of the fish that's watching the shrimp. So when you guys and gals want to catch more fish, get yourself an Ingle Cooler bait tank. Like I said, they come in like 13, 19, and 30 quart. And I just run the 19, but for shrimp, it's all you ever need. 8-10 dozen shrimp. You can keep them all day long. And couple of frozen water bottles throughout the day. Man, it's money. But obviously, they've got tons of other stuff. So check them out at inglecoolers.com. Jonathan, we were talking about fishing in other areas and fishing those Carolinas and different things like that. One of the places that I've not fished a whole lot is from, say, Crystal River all the way around to Carabel, to Apalachicola, basically.
I was just in that region this week.
Were you?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but I know that, the tides aren't what they are on the East Coast, but you still get some of those Spartina and some of those kind of sight fishing scenarios in and amongst the grass in some cases. And then, they've got shallow water grouper over there that I went and did that it's been a year and a half ago. I went over there and I did that out of a Zello. And wow.
Yeah.
Talk about rocking you when you get a strike from a 20, 22-inch, 24-inch grouper. And it stops your swim bait. Holy
and you're
cow.
in like 7 to 10 feet of water.
Yeah.
And then when this fish hit us, you'd think you hit the rock.
Yeah.
But the rocks don't pull like these grouper do. They just come up and smack that plug. And it's done.
So you were just filming a show over there?
No, I actually took a day off.
Okay.
And went up I was in the Keaton Beach area.
Okay.
Where we launched. We were tarpon fishing. Captain Jay Carson, good friend of mine. We have filmed a few episodes together. I love fishing in that area. Typically when we film, we're redfish, trout kind of deal.
Right.
And the red fishing up there it's lights out. It's unbelievable. But this time of year, these tarpon are migrating up the coast. They're going both coasts.
Yeah.
And then there's that zone north of Crystal River where they just don't get messed with very much, going around the Big Bend. Now, once they get to like Destin area and they're going down the Panhandle, then you're getting hit a whole lot more. But in that Big Bend area, right now it's scalloping season. So the majority of the boats, I would say 99.9% of the boats that we saw were all scalloping.
Oh, really? That started June 1st?
June 1st, yes, in that area.
For some reason I was thinking it was July 1st.
It used to be July 1st, but it has changed.
Okay.
And in July, the limit changes from 1 5-gallon bucket per boat to 2. Don't quote me on that. I know it changes. Okay. I know it increases, but I don't know the exact number. So before you go out there, make sure you check FWC's regulations. But yeah, in July 1st, the season changes for the amount you can keep.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but we were up there. We saw 70, 80 tarpon, and
nice.
we were throwing fly.
Now, is the water up that way similar to the water down around Crystal River, where it's
crystal
got
clear.
that kind of clear to almost maybe a greenish, a little bit of a greenish
there's
tint?
a little bit of greenish tint to it. Now
'Cause
it
I
was
noticed-
cloudy, so it was hard to see water. When the sun's shining, you get the colors start to pop, but it's crystal clear. There's grass everywhere.
Because
There's
I
rock
noticed when you
piles.
get around towards Carabel, I fish from Carabel and then kind of onto the west a little bit. The water over there looks a little different. It looks a little clearer, if you will, not quite as greenish. And some of that may be the effect of the grass on the bottom as well.
Absolutely.
You may be getting some bleed over in color or something to that effect, or some reflection or something off of that, because that healthy eelgrass that's over there is just, there's acres and acres and acres of it. Yeah,
beautiful. And you talk about sharks. We saw a ton of sharks. I was surprised how many people were in the water scalping. I'm like, man, there's a shark, there's a shark, there's a shark. We get sharks in the river. We're talking about sharks being in the river right now, and I caught a ton of sharks with clients, and clients love catching sharks.
Yeah.
But we don't have sharks like in the river system here, at least in the northern end, like they do in other places.
Yeah.
I mean, there were sharks everywhere. It was crazy.
Down in the Keys this year, there was an overabundance of sharks when I was down there in May for 3 weeks, and it's in some cases like you can't fish,
And that's all over the state.
Yeah,
that's all over. I was listening to a report in Tampa Bay. They were marking more sharks than they were tarpon, and so they decided, you know what? We're not even going to try to tarpon fish, because if we hook a tarpon, we know that's a dead tarpon.
Yeah,
and that's happening all over the state. A good friend of ours, Captain Eric Myers.
Yeah,
fishing offshore. We talk about it all the time. How, we would have had a great bite today, but half of our fish got eaten by sharks. You know, so sharks are an issue right now, and something that needs to be dealt with. Public outcry is going to be the biggest help on that.
Yeah, I know there's a couple of different forums, websites, social media pages, things of that nature, talking with it. There's in talking with guys like Captain Ray Rocher, talking with Ridge Murphy, Rick's son, talking with Kyle Weaver, these guys, Jumbo Thomas even. These guys are saying that from the Keys up through the south part of the region, even up into the Stewart and Fort Pierce area, where they're chasing sailfish. The sailfish are getting predated on by sharks. Not just one shark, but multiple sharks. It's like they hook up on a sailfish, and 3 sharks all of a sudden are swarming it. And so it's they're having to pick up and run to try to get to another location where they're trying not to be so many sharks. But I saw it you always see sharks. You see lemons in particular. You see some black tips. When we're tarpon fishing in the Keys and the channels, you see the black tips more. On the flats, when we're bone fishing, permit fishing, you see the lemons. And some of those lemons are pretty doggone big lemons, as you know. This year, and so going around, when you run around Flamingo and then you get up to East Cape and Middle Cape and you're heading up towards, Shark River and that area, that whole side, all of those inlets and outlets, East Cape Canal, as an example, that goes into the backside of Lake Ingram and Whitewater Bay. You try and fish that shoreline for snook. It's loaded with snook, but you have to use basically a 30 wide with the drag lockdown, because the second that the shark realizes that the snook is hooked up, it's on it.
Yeah.
And these are bulls, these are lemons, these are black tips. In some cases, they're even spinners that are 5 to 8, 9 feet in length. These are sizable fish that will mow down a 30-inch snook in a heartbeat.
No problem.
No problem at all.
Yeah.
Last year we actually we were permit fishing out off the sort of the tide line out in the bay, out off of between East Cape and Middle Cape. We were, a mile off the beach or so, and working a tide line out there for permit. The permit, we're cruising that line, bumping the grass, kind of the same way you'll see cobia do that here on the East Coast, where you get a grass line and you'll see the cobia come push the grass around. Or dolphin will kind of do it once in a while, a little farther offshore. So these permit were just cruising, and the water was kind of dirty, but they were really dark. They almost looked like cobia in the water. They were so dark as they were swimming along. And you just bumping the grass here and bumping the grass there. So you'd pitch a crab in front of them, hook up, it's great sight casting opportunities. But, I mean, we were getting sharked. The shark could eat half the permit. And this year, I was running along, and I just start seeing explosions. And I'm like, what is that, a jacks or something? I slowed down. We got into this one little area where there was a bunch of triple tail. And they were all like 12 to 20-inch triple tail.
The filet mignon of the ocean.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I love this fish.
And the sharks were in there so thick, we couldn't hardly even fish there. It was ridiculous. And so we moved on up a little ways and moved actually in closer to the beach as well, to try to keep from getting sharked.
You know what this sounds like? Sounds like our dolphin problem here in the river, too.
Yeah. I was really...
These animals know what we're doing. I swear that the dolphin know the sound of my Merc 60 on the back of my skiff,
Yeah.
And they just follow you in. You get on a bite, action brings action. And you start getting on a good trout bite out here on the river, and it brings in more trout, and then all of a sudden, here come the dolphin.
It's so funny because one of my favorite things to have my clients throw, and for myself to throw, is a Rapala skitterwalk. I love throwing skitterwalks. You throw a skitterwalk, and if there's a dolphin within 300 yards, it comes to you. Whether you've caught a fish or not, it knows the sound of a skitterwalk, and that the trout like that sound, and that you're going to be releasing an undersized trout that just ate that skitterwalk.
Yeah.
And they're going to be right there waiting for it.
You know what I always do? I always have a skitterwalk tied on my boat, and I cast them at the dolphins when they get too close, because they don't like they like the fish that are coming after them. They don't like getting hit or getting close to getting hit by one of them skitterwalks. Yeah. That's a great plug.
Spooking them off.
Try to spook them off. Exactly.
Yep, that is the truth. Well, guys and gals, we're going to take our top of the hour break right now, and then we're going to come back. We got a caller on the line, so don't go away. Captain Jonathon Moss and myself, Jim Ross, are going to be right back with a whole nother hour of Catch a Memory right after this break. We appreciate you tuning in every Saturday right here to Catch a Memory Outdoors. Second hour of the show. If you're just tuning in, grab a cup of coffee. We have got Captain Jonathon Moss in the studio with myself, Captain Jim Ross. And, of course, if you want to give us a call, we'd love to hear from you at 321-632-1000. We're going to go right to the phone lines. We've got Lisa Fitzgerald calling in from CCA, and it sounds like Lisa may be chasing some fish this morning, Jonathan.
I wouldn't be surprised. She's always catching fish.
Good morning. How are you doing, Lisa?
Well, good morning. We're out in Little Gasparilla Island Pass chasing a few tarpon.
Okay.
Got one little bite. Having a good day. It's been an interesting tarpon season over here, but we're doing well. And I just have to let everyone know that we've had 11 CCA Florida Star tagged redfish caught.
Yeah.
And
no winners.
And no winners.
Wow.
Guess what? We're not giving any boats away, but guess what? We are giving away. We are giving away T-shirts for those people who are not registered in the competition and catching a star tagged redfish.
Yep, saying that I caught one and I wasn't registered.
And that is so heartbreaking. Let me tell you.
I'm guilty. I've had that happen.
It's crazy when someone calls you and they don't realize what they have. Or some of them who do realize what they have. But what's been really great is that truly most of the anglers have released them, except for those who really didn't know what was going on or what they had.
Yeah.
Of the 11, all were released but 2.
Nice.
So I would tell you, pretty exciting. We also are pretty excited because if you get registered before July 4th at 11:55, we will be providing those anglers 2 tickets in the raffle to win a brand new Sea-Doo Fish Pro trophy and a Can-Am Defender.
Wow.
So you don't even have to catch a fish to win some amazing prizes and stuff.
Well, I tell you what, a Can-Am Defender, that's...
Yeah, think about that.
I could use one of those. That saved me $30,000.
Yep. It is pretty exciting, I'm telling you. We've been doing some really great promos to get people registered. Now's the time, if you're fishing this summer, really imperative that you get yourself registered. It's any fish you catch can be entered in the CCA Florida Star competition.
Yeah, any fish.
Star.
Doesn't have to be tagged.
Any
Doesn't have to be any specific species. Any fish.
No.
Hey, Lisa, I just wanted to say congratulations to you guys. This week's Florida Insider Fishing Report TV show was the annual kids show. And is it my understanding that you got all 100 kids signed up to be in the CCA Star Tournament this year?
That is correct. We donated all of those registrations to get those 100 kids registered for the competition. It's been an amazing endeavor to get youth involved in the sport of fishing. Right now, we have about 1,600, maybe 1,800 registered youth anglers. And of those, a lot of them don't enter fish. They may enter one or two fish, but every fish has an opportunity for them to win either a $25,000 scholarship from Real Tree Fishing, $25,000 scholarship from Academy Sports and Outdoors, Strike Zone Melbourne, and the Sport Fishing Association Club over there do a $5,000 scholarship specifically for kids from Brevard County.
Awesome.
So if
That's
you have children in Brevard County, you should be getting them registered because there is truly a specific $5,000 scholarship just for those youth.
That's pretty cool. So, Lisa, kind of sliding sideways here, because I hear that you're out on the water chasing tarpon this morning. Now, Jonathan and I, of course, you know how much we love to chase those things. How has your bite? How has your bite been overall with this wind that we've had this past week? The East Coast has been absolutely almost blown out. So, just wondering, have you guys been able to fish the West Coast at all?
We have, because we fish inside in some of the passes, and really just try to manage where we are. Beach fishing is a no-no, and that big Boca Grande Pass gets so rough that you cannot fish it. But if it is, a specific wind, we're able to get out on that beach and fish it. I can only tell you that last weekend I had a really good bite. We had a bite this morning. We're just out here trying to make sure that we present baits in front of them, and hopefully we'll catch one. Yeah,
well, as you know, angles are everything when it comes to tarpon fishing, and if your angle's if your angle's not right, a lot of times you can just say kiss that one goodbye.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, we are out here right now with lots of fish rolling in front of us. They're all moving into this little pass here. So hopefully, if you catch a tarpon, put a measuring device in front of it. You have the opportunity to enter that fish as long as you do not take the fish out of the water. No matter what the FWC says, doesn't matter what size it is, do not take it out of the water.
Yeah.
Do not grab it by the gills. Get your fingers in the eye socket, any of that, or I will disqualify you from the competition.
Yeah, make sure it's a lip grab only, and no lip gaffing.
No devices.
Yep, no lip gaffing. Yeah.
Nope. Really have to pay attention to what you're doing with these fish, and we are very excited to be able to have some actual very conservation-minded efforts with these fish.
Definitely. Well, Lisa, how does somebody get registered for the Star competition?
They can get into the competition at ccaflstar.com. Get yourself registered, or you can go on to and give us a call at 844-387-7827.
Awesome. Well, good luck out there on those tarpon today. I'm jealous. I wish I was out there with you. But hopefully I'll be back out there every day this coming week chasing them myself.
All right. Well, thank you very much. You have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye now. That's cool. Tarpon are one of those, it's like this iconic species that no matter where you are throughout the state of Florida, everybody likes to go chase tarpon at a certain time of the year. And it starts earlier in the year down south, and then obviously it's now moving up and
On
through
both
the
sides,
entire
yeah.
coast of the Gulf side and the Atlantic side. I was talking with Rick Riles the other day, and he was saying that they've got tarpon up in Jacksonville already. Tommy's got them. Tommy Derringer's got them in St. Augustine. Talking with the guys at Ponce Inlet, Mark Gibson, and some of those other guys are saying that tarpon are, Fred Roberts, all around the inlet there at Ponce. We've got them in the backwaters a little bit, not as good as they could be, but they're on the beach. We just need the weather to get to the beach to be able to fish those fish. Just love tarpon fishing.
They are my personal favorite frustration.
Yeah, exactly.
Some days it doesn't matter. They're eating. Some days you got to work a little bit harder.
So you were talking about going up into that Keaton Beach, Horseshoe Beach, Steenhatchee kind of an area, St. Mark's, it rolls on around and then goes down towards, Sop Choppy to Carabel. How often do you get a chance to get up there?
Oh, not often enough. That was my second fun day of fishing since October. I'm a busy guy. So between the show and my family and guiding full time, I don't get a lot of fun fishing days. But I was able to sneak away Wednesday night and get on the water on Thursday.
That's awesome.
But I love it up there. Old Florida.
Now, are you throwing fly, or are you throwing artificial, or are
we
you throwing live bait?
threw fly.
Okay.
The majority of the time we threw fly, throwing a 12 weight. But when the wind picked up and it was just, you said it, all about the angles. You're not going to be able to make that presentation the way we were anchored up, with the way the wind was coming, the way the fish were coming at us. So we picked up some plastic, some artificial.
Gotcha.
But it was tough. It was really tough. But that's tarpon fishing, especially with, artificial or fly. It's all about presentation and getting in front of that fish. And then the fish has to decide, I want to eat it.
Exactly.
We had a couple of follows, a couple looks, and they follow that fly. I didn't have any fly line to strip in. I mean, they were at the boat. And then, there's a boat. And then they take off the other way.
So I was up against some mangroves here just a couple of days ago, and some of you all that watch some of my reels on social media may have seen this, but there's this beautiful fish laying there, right? And I'm sight casting to him, and he follows it a little bit, and then he stops. So I make another presentation. He follows it a little bit closer, and then he stops. And then I'm like, okay, he's got to eat it. He's interested. He's got to eat this thing. I make another presentation, and I'm pulling it and I'm pulling, and he got, two fishing rod lengths from the boat, and the lure went from, being on the 3-4 inches above the bottom. It started that upward angle coming up towards, the boat. So the fish, you can see him, he turns and he looks up and he's like, oh, stop.
Yep.
And he turns.
Your mug. You didn't want it.
And he looked at me and he was like, oh, heck no. Nope, not today.
Oh, that's Captain Jim Ross.
Yeah,
I ain't eating that
not
thing.
today. It was so funny. He just was like, put on the brakes,
Listen, these fish see us so often. They know our faces. They know our boats look like. They know who we are.
Who we got on the line? Let's go ahead and take Mark for 3 minutes. Mark for 3. Good morning, buddy. What's going on?
Good morning, brothers. How you guys doing?
I was going to say, your ears must have been burning. We were just talking about you a minute ago.
Let me tell you, I had the worst day in the river yesterday. Good grief.
Really? You've been killing it up there.
Man, I don't know if it was it was dead low tide, and the bonnet head sharks are everywhere. Now, if you're into bonnet heads, but these people, they were meat lovers. I said, well, I mean, we don't want a shark. It was that type of charter.
Right, right. You had
so
to fill the cooler guys on the boat.
Yeah, but if you go to Buc-ee's, they have bags of ice for $2 for 20 pounds. You can fill it full. It was just one of those days, but looks like next week, Jimmy, is going to be hopefully got some decent weather. Those clowns were all over the beach. I don't even care if anybody hears. They're on the beach. Come get them.
Come get them. They're there, huh?
Come get them. They're there.
Yep.
But that's it. Got a little honey-do list today, so I'm kind of, working around the house.
Gotcha.
Now, what was my ears burning? What kind of?
Well, we were just talking about, the tarpon are moving up the way, and you had mentioned you had seen some up there around the rocks, and I was talking with Fred Robert and he, Frenchie, and he was been catching a couple. He's been actually doing really good on the snook too. It looks like you guys have had at times of the tide, you've had a decent snook bite going on up there.
Yeah, I would say if anybody's got it dialed in, Frenchie is definitely one of the best because, I try to do a lot of that near shore as well. And every time I go by the rocks, I mean, I've been going out about 6 a.m. and Frenchie's already sitting there.
Yeah.
So, he's definitely got it. And, I come through the inlet the other day, and it was just the turn of the incoming. I mean, and I come through a school of 40, and I went way away from them, threw some bait out, and just was drifting, and I think they go, we already seen you come through.
Yep. Yeah, they'll do that. They will do that. Well, buddy, we're up against our break. How does somebody get a hold of you if they want to get out there and do some fishing with you this coming week?
Well, you can Google me there at Naughty Diver Charters or find me on Facebook, just Naughty Diver, Daytona Beach Fishing Charters, or 386-214-1477, Jimmy.
All right, buddy. Well, appreciate the call, and enjoy that honey-do list today, and hopefully tomorrow or the next day you can get back out on the water and start chasing some fish again.
Sounds good, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye-bye now.
All right, buddy. Sure.
Hey, gang, we're going to take our next break. Captain Jonathon Moss and myself, Jim Ross, are going to be right back with more Catch a Memory, so don't go away. Appreciate you tuning in every Saturday morning right here to Catch a Memory Outdoors. I'm Captain Jim Ross. We're going to let you know that this segment of the show is brought to you by Petrucci Insurance. So nobody likes paying for insurance. You don't like it. I don't like it. But it's unfortunately we have to do it because we have things that we're trying to protect. Your house, your car, your boat. So here's the deal. The insurance company doesn't care about you. The only thing the insurance company cares about is you giving them as much money as they can con out of you and then not have to give it back to you at the end of the year because you didn't make a claim. So it's one of those things. It's like I get aggravated. I don't know about you, Jonathan.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
I get aggravated having to pay for insurance for various things, but we have to have it just in case something happens.
Necessary evil.
Just remember this. The insurance company is not looking out for your best interest and never will be looking out for your best interest. All they're looking to do is save money. So what you want to do is make sure that you are getting the most amount of coverage for the best possible price. And the way you do that is by calling Petrucci Insurance at 321-632-1200. That's 321-632-1200, 632-1200. Call them up, say, hey, this is what I'm trying to cover. These are what I think my policy, this is what my policy is stating now. Are these, am I within the right parameters? Am I over-covered? Am I under-covered? Because being underinsured is just as bad as being overinsured or overpaying. So let Petrucci Insurance go through and do a rate quote for you and assess what it is that you truly need for your insurance needs. That's what they do every single day. Just give them a call, 321-632-1200. They save me a pile of money. They save me a pile of money every year because when you get your renewal comes back in, and it's always exponentially higher than what you want to pay and probably higher than what you really need to pay to get the same amount of coverage. So they'll check with a bunch of different insurance providers to make sure that you're getting the right coverage for the best price. That's what they do. So give them a call, 321-632-1200, Petrucci Insurance, helping you save money and get covered the right way. They are not in the business to be friends with the insurance company. They just provide a service for you. So give them a call. Jonathan, we were talking about, during the break about the redfish ban here in the central part of the eastern Florida area.
Coming up on 2 years, yeah.
From the South Bridge at New Smyrna all the way down to St. Lucie, we cannot keep redfish. So our producer, Paul, was saying, hey, why is this? Well, when we first started fishing here, for those people that have lived here 5 years and less, okay, when I first started fishing here, there were thousands and thousands of redfish in the waters, thousands of them. It was ridiculous. I mean, an average day of fishing on an average charter with an average skill set. I'm not talking about, somebody who's extremely proficient. I'm talking about somebody who's just an average fisherman. 20 redfish and 40 trout was an average day.
No problem.
All day, every day. Yep. Banana River, Indian River, Mosquito Lagoon, it was probably double that.
Yeah. Because
the schools in the Mosquito Lagoon, there used to be 800-900 fish in a school in Mosquito Lagoon. I remember I was I pulled back into White Sands one morning, okay? And I'm talking the whole back end of White Sands erupted. And I was like, what is that? I'm thinking there was 1,200 redfish in the back of White Sands. 4-hour trip. My one customer landed 44 fish throwing a gold spoon in 4 hours.
They were sore the next day.
It was mayhem.
Yeah.
It was every cast there was a redfish on. They were just, one of those things that if you hadn't been there to see it, you wouldn't believe it. Somebody tells you about it, you're like, there's no way.
Right.
Well, now if I catch 44 redfish in a month, I'm happy.
Yeah.
That's a great month.
That's a great month.
So here you go, looking at time and how the degradation of the lagoon because of our own fault, putting the pollutants and things in there, stormwater, that sort of thing in there, not taking care of the lagoon, has eroded the fishery. Well, now in the last year and a half, we've got some grass regrowth, and we're seeing a resurgence of the redfish and of the trout. And the reason is, and Paul was like, why is redfish shut down? Because we're catching, I think our population at this point is probably, I'm going to say about 15% of what it was 10 years ago. Maybe 20%, but I'm saying closer to 15% of what it was 10 years ago. And it's probably 7 or 8% of what it was 20 years ago. So, but the whole thing is because of grass.
Right.
So if you're going to go deer hunting, are you going to go to the desert or are you going to go to the woods? It's pretty easy pick, right? I mean, you're not hunting deer in the desert.
Deer want to be where the food are.
Yeah.
Redfish want to be where the food is. Yeah. Right.
So where there's grass, it provides multiple things for them. It provides cover, just like the woods do for a deer. It provides food sources for them because there's snails and clams and baby fish and shrimps and all of these little crabs, all of these things that live in the grass. And it the protection that it provides. So for those of you guys and gals who are just moving here and are just experiencing grass regrowth in some of the areas for the first time, here's what you're going to see, and it's going to freak you out because you're not going to be ready for this. If you were here 5 years ago and this place was a moonscape and now the grass is growing back and you're poling down the grass, you're poling along and you can see in the water because you got your polarized glasses on, and you can see that there's nothing in front of you for 30 yards. There's absolutely nothing but grass. And you're slowly poling, slowly trolling, motoring along, whatever it is, poling hopefully, because you're going to catch more fish on the pole.
And we don't want to tear up the new grass growth.
And don't want to tear up the new grass. And all of a sudden, you're going to look, and at 17 feet in front of the boat, there's going to be a redfish. And you're going to go, where'd that come from? He just materialized out of nowhere. Well, he kind of did, because the grass is 8 inches tall, and the redfish is 5.5 inches tall, and he was laying down in the grass on his belly, hiding in the grass.
Yeah.
Just like a deer would lay down in the woods. Yeah. So as you approached and he felt the pressure wave from the boat, he knew something wasn't quite right, and so he picked up and started moving and swimming away from that pressure wave that comes off the boat, or that sound, or that whatever. But he says, something's going on and I need to move. I'm not safe sitting here anymore. I need to move. And all of a sudden, boom, there he is, and he materializes right in front of you. The other side of that is you're drifting down a flat and you're not making any noise. You're just on a light breeze day, light little drift. You're cruising along, and there's a redfish, and you go to make the cast, and all of a sudden, where'd he go? He vanishes in thin air. Like, did the aliens just beam him up? I mean, what's going on here? Where did he go? And then you're looking, and and all of a sudden, you get close enough because you're drifting towards him, and there he is laying down in the grass.
And it's amazing how a fish, like a redfish, we're talking about the sizes or during the break, how they're little bitty to massive, how they can move and disappear in just the smallest amount of water.
Yeah.
And you have no idea they're there until you get on top and see them.
You're typically fishing in 16, 18, 20 inches of water. I like that 18-inch zone. That's my what I call redfish zone.
Exactly.
Is that 18 inches. And if you've got about 6 or 7 inches of grass and 18 inches of water, that's money, because they can hide down in it, but yet they can pop up on top of it, and they've still got, let's say 12 inches of water that they can swim through just above that grass, searching for a potential meal.
Right.
And so those type of scenarios are what I look for when I get out on the water, and that's what you guys and gals really should be looking for as this grass regrowth occurs. You're going to experience things that you have not experienced before, but it's a win.
Well,
it's a win for us.
I give FWC credit. I went to their redfish conference they had in Ocala. I want to say it was just under 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about stock assessments. They are out here talking to anglers, talking to guides, doing their own research. And they were saying in Southwest Florida, they had a higher population of redfish, but it was closed. But on the East Coast, here in the Space Coast, not only were the redfish open, but our water quality was an
horrible,
an F on the scale, and
F
it was wide
minus
open.
If you live in Turdsville.
So there were so many of us saying, "Hey, if you're looking at the research and you're looking at the data and you're making this decision to close the fishery in another area that's doing far better than our area, perhaps we should consider the close." Not because we don't like catching and eating redfish, not because I don't want Joe Schmo from Titusville to go and catch him a redfish and take it home. No, I'm not against that. But what I am against is us not managing our waters for our kids, for the next generations. Is we have to make those changes, hard changes, to make an estuary of abundance again.
If we don't sacrifice something, then there will be nothing to sacrifice.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
A little sacrifice. And we're getting ready to be 2 years on the redfish. This is why we talked about earlier. This is why our black drum exploded.
Right.
Because I really believe, I talked to guys like Tommy up in St. Augustine and guys up in Jacksonville. Their redfish fishery just all of a sudden in the last 5-10 years has gotten really, really good.
They've got all our fish.
Exactly. That's
our
it.
Fish left
they
and went
they
there.
went out the inlet and they went till they found what they were looking for.
Clean
the bait.
water.
And now that we have, if we can avoid a hurricane, which probably isn't possible this year, but if we can avoid a hurricane, we can keep the winds down, right? And we can keep those algae blooms at bay. That grass that's there is going to continue to grow until we get to winter. Winter gets cold, water gets colder, that water's going to clean up, the grass is going to grow. We can get those manatee to migrate. Do you know the state of Florida spends $27 million feeding manatees? It's a budgeted item. The state of Florida feeds manatees $27 million worth of lettuce a year.
And the current power plant that is at Port St. John.
Yep.
That supplies
It's a haven for them.
half of the electricity to the East Coast from Daytona all the way down to Vero and then all the way over to Orlando. Here's the thing that I don't get about saving the manatee, and I like manatees. I don't have a problem with manatees. Yes, there's a lot of them. Yes, they have overgrazed this area, but that's not the manatee's fault. That's our fault. We're mismanaging
Absolutely.
an
with
item.
The water, with the manatees.
So the Save the Manatee Club, the club that by far and away has shouted the loudest, has had the most influence on policy, on boaters' rights, on fishing, on accessibility. I mean, when you look at the manatee zone that was created in the Banana River, it took 8 square miles of water away from anglers.
Yeah.
These are places that you and I used to go fish in a motorized vessel. Now we can no longer go there because of the manatees. So when you look at the manatee zones along every shoreline, these idle zones, I'm not necessarily opposed to them. I'm just saying that the reason that they exist is because of the Save the Manatee Club.
Right.
Okay. Now, the Save the Manatee Club is trying to, they say they're trying to save the manatee. But if you're truly trying to save an animal, you're not going to put policy in place that's going to potentially put that animal in harm's way. And the Save the Manatee Club did exactly that.
Absolutely.
And that's when I lost faith in them. Okay?
Listen, are we coming up on a break?
Yep. Well, let's
Okay.
go ahead and take our break, and then we'll get back into that policy. And because that, in my opinion, this is the biggest farce that we will
Well, we
ever
have a huge opportunity in November, and we'll talk
to
about that
change
after
that.
the break.
We're going to come back after this break. Appreciate you tuning in every Saturday right here to Catch Your Memory Outdoors. I want to talk to you a little bit, just real quick, before we go back into our subject matter about the Starbright Corrosion Buster Pin. Now, I talked about this thing a couple of weeks ago, but I finally got some more back in and wanted to show them to you. These things are really, really cool. You can, if you've got some kind of corrosion that you're dealing with, it's really easy. You can, in some cases, you can take a little piece of sandpaper and kind of, clean some stuff up. But with the Corrosion Buster Pin, sometimes sandpaper is a little rigid. This thing has these little glass fibers that come out of the end of it, and they're like strong as steel, and they will help, get any of those little corrosion areas off of there. And then the product that's in the Corrosion Buster pin helps to remove rust, all kinds of all those little contaminants out of those little places, and then allows you to seal them back off. So it's a really, really cool little item. You can use it. One of the things that I use them for all the time is my plug-in connector for my charger on my boat, because the prongs on the plug-in connector always get corrosion on them. Get that little green build-up, and I just rub the Corrosion Buster pin on there, clear all that off, put a little dielectric grease back on it, and back together again, and away you go, and it works good as new. So check these things out. It's really, really cool little Corrosion Buster pin. Not much to it, but man, does it work. So check those things out, and you're going to be impressed. That's our Starbright Cleaning Solutions segment for the day. So, Jonathan, we were talking about the Save the Manatee Club, and for those people that really don't understand what that club does, I've come in my mind to understand that they basically are just looking to generate some funds so that they can pad their paychecks. If it was truly about the manatees, then how would you have any possible thought of changing an animal's natural migration habits?
Absolutely.
And
that's it. Bingo.
What the power plant was mandated to do before it could be built, and how they got their fingers into this, I don't know. How you can say that, a club, the Save the Manatee Club, mandated something to, a federal entity, a state entity, even a private business entity like Florida Power and Light building a new power plant, was that the water coming out of the power plant had to stay at a certain temperature all year long to keep the manatees warm. Well, so now you've stopped the migration pattern. Manatees know that the water gets cold. When the water gets cold, they swim south. They keep swimming south until they find the
Warm
temperature
water.
Gradient that they want to be in.
Food. Yeah.
And just so happens when you swim south and you find that right temperature gradient, that's where the seagrass is still at. That what a sea cow eats is seagrass. Now, because we've changed their pattern so much, you'll watch them eating carcasses. When you're filleting fish, they're absolutely eating every carcass that you drop down there if they get a chance. It's funny, Blair Wiggins and I and Jeff Kranick and the crew were down in the Keys last year. We caught a swordfish. The captain and mate cleaned that swordfish for us, and then through the swordfish carcass, we kept the sword, but the carcass in the water, like you would with any other snapper, grouper, dolphin, whatever. Mm-hmm. The manatees were eating off of the carcass.
That's insane.
It's crazy. You've got a herbivore that you've turned into an omnivore because of what we as humans have done. So you've changed the migration patterns of 2, 3, 4, 6, 800. I don't know how many hundreds of manatees hang out at the power plant in the wintertime. But the reason that we had the huge die-offs the last couple of years was there wasn't any grass to start with.
Right.
They were already on the Jenny Craig diet.
Yeah.
And now you've put them into a starvation mode because you're holding them captive in this warm water thermal pollution that's coming out of the power plant.
And the anglers were talking about it.
Yeah, and there's nothing for miles.
Right.
There's nothing for them to eat for miles and miles and miles. And so now you have to go and start feeding them lettuce because you've created a thermal pollution zone that they don't know to leave. If you simply turn the hot water off, or if you didn't mandate that they put out a certain temperature of water all year long to attract the manatees, then those manatees would go ahead and migrate south. So we lost, I don't know, 150 or 200 manatees a couple of years ago, and then another 100 or something, last year. And the reason is because there's no food, and we're artificially enticing them through that thermal pollution to stay here instead of letting them migrate as they should.
I mentioned it, $27 million in the state budget to feed manatees.
When if you turn the thermal pollution off and let them swim south, there's all the free grass they could ever want down in the Florida Keys.
Imagine if we
Florida
took that $27 million and we invested it into water treatment facility in Titusville.
Yeah.
Or took that money and put it to so many different things in this state.
Yeah.
Well, we could do so much
speaking
good.
of Titusville in particular, they're the, and have been for decades, they have been the biggest polluter of the lagoon system. Biggest single polluter of the lagoon system is the infrastructure failures that happen up in the city of Titusville. The citizens of Titusville over a year ago voted an amendment, 82% overwhelmingly voted for a Clean Water Act of some sort. I'm not familiar with the act. You guys can go look it up if you want to. The city council refused to certify it, refused to certify the election. Why are your citizens are saying we want clean water? We're willing to pay an extra $5 a month per house to upgrade the infrastructure, create new technologies or implement new technologies to put cleaner water back into the lagoon system if there needs to be a dump of wastewater at all.
Right.
And the city council didn't certify it.
Unbelievable. Listen, in November, we as citizens of the state of Florida have an opportunity to make a big move to save hunting and fishing. In 23 states.
No, before you go any farther, here's the thing. People are like, what do you mean? I go hunting any day I want. Well, during hunting season. Right. I go fishing any day I want.
Do you know in 2022, in 12 different states, it was on the ballot to ban hunting and fishing? Yeah. 12 states on the ballot in the United States of America were trying to ban hunting and fishing.
It's craziness.
In 23 states right now, there is a constitutional amendment, a state constitutional amendment to that Constitution to allow you to make it a constitutional amendment to hunt and fish. In November, we in the state of Florida have the opportunity to become the 24th state. And here's what this does. This doesn't mean that any regulations that have been put in place in the past, like gill netting, that doesn't make that legal again. Right. Everything that's already currently on the books as law doesn't change. But what it does do is it eliminates any opportunity for any politician on either side to show up and say, we're going to ban hunting and fishing, because it is a constitutional right in that state. And Florida, the fishing capital of the world, it is a no-brainer for us to come in here and do this. This is allowing our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids to have the same.
We're going to be able to ensure to them, not only we continue to fish, but that they'll have, future generations are going to have the ability to fish in the state of Florida.
And you're still going to have to buy a fishing license. Mm-hmm. That doesn't take away from those rules. But those funds collected from fishing license does so much good with research, with purchasing land and making land into wildlife management areas, managing our waters. There's so much good. And the amount of money, we're talking $15 billion annually, comes to this state, economic impact that comes to this state from hunting and fishing. The bulk being fishing, and about $2 billion of that coming for hunting. And the number of jobs. And
I'd say the majority of that's duck hunters.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the number of jobs, 120,000 jobs in the state of Florida, just in the fishing industry alone. So it is imperative that we vote yes on number 2. If you want to learn more, you can visit my website, thecaptainslogtv.com, and hit the education tab. There's 2 links there. One's going to take you to tell you all about this particular amendment, and you can read all about it. Don't take my word for it. Right, just because we're here on the radio talking.
Do your own research.
Do your research and read up on it. The second link is to sign the petition. This is what the petition does. You know that 75% of people who sign a petition do what they say they're going to do because they signed the petition. Yeah. So go on there, sign the petition, and take the oath. Say, hey, I'm doing it. I'm going to vote yes on to. If you sign that petition, it really will send a message to our political leaders. And this isn't a bipartisan issue. This is, when it was brought to the House, Representative Lauren Mello out of Southwest Florida brought this amendment to the table, and it was voted unanimously on both sides. Only one person voted against it in the House. So this isn't a Democrat or Republican, left or right issue. This is a Florida tradition that we want to maintain and keep. Fishing and
not
hunting,
let anybody meddle with in the future, because there's a lot of meddling going on these days.
Absolutely.
You know? So definitely, and that's Amendment 2. And that's going to be on the ballot in
November. I don't talk a lot of politics, especially on the boat, but this is something I'm passionate about because I know my sons are listening. Dieter and Cy, hi boys. I know you guys are watching at home and listening at home. They are lifetime license holders. They're 4 and 2. Yeah. They're passionate about fishing. My 4-year-old he's got it worse than I do, man, and he's only 4. And so when I see them on the boat and I see them catching fish, man, I light up.
Yeah.
You know what it's like.
Oh, yeah.
Having your son follow in your footsteps, or seeing your clients. You talked about our clients who we have average anglers a lot of the times, and seeing them light up because the fish they just caught, even if it is one of those 10-pound sail cats on the top water, they don't have that experience back home. So when they get here and that happens, they see these tarpon, they catch these redfish, they see the grass coming back, and I'm not anti-manatee. Even when they see the manatees, they're excited about it. They feel our passion.
Like I said before, I absolutely love seeing manatees because that's part of a healthy ecosystem.
Absolutely.
But to mismanage them the way that they've been mismanaged,
it's a disservice to that.
It really is. Yeah. It's such a disservice to that animal. When that animal could survive, and you know that animal's not going to, because of something that a man-made policy has put in place, is now going to kill that animal, that's wrong. And in my opinion, needs to be changed.
Absolutely.
Absolutely needs to be changed. Well, we're going to take our next break. Hopefully you guys and gals are enjoying the show this morning. We got our last segment coming up. We're going to finish up with a little wrap-up here with Captain Jonathon Moss and myself right after these messages, so don't go away. This segment of the show is brought to you by Strike Zone down in Melbourne. We appreciate Strike Zone sponsoring this segment of the show. If you're looking for all the cool gear, get down to Strike Zone and check them out. They've got a fantastic selection. We've got Captain Jonathon Moss. For those of you that may just be joining the show last minute here, we've got a couple of minutes left in the show. I was just kind of interested, people watching and listening from all over, like we were talking about, Jonathan. We got guys in Tennessee and a couple other places. But Roy Young says, he brings up another topic that is near and dear to our hearts and a lot of anglers' hearts out there. What about the South Atlantic Fisheries Management?
I didn't even look at it. I knew that's where you were going.
So South Atlantic Marine Fisheries Council has, obviously, they have to follow rules and guidelines that are set in place by National Marine Fisheries. And talking basically about our seasons. Okay, so they just closed grouper down. Grouper season was open for a month and a half or something, and it's already shut down because we've allegedly met the recreational quota. They shut down a lot of the tile fishing and some of those other deep water species much earlier in the year. So that's kind of, interesting. We'll see if they open them back up towards the end of the year. It's hard to say. But, the big one
red snapper
is the red snapper. This is a species that has been so mismanaged. It's absurd that we're even talking about having, a one-day season in the Atlantic Ocean.
So it works.
A one-day season.
There's 2 councils. There's the Gulf side, okay, and each council has a state representative, a commercial, a recreational, and then a councilman, like a politician side, okay? And so when you look at the Gulf side, you got Texas, Louisiana, and Florida, Alabama and Florida.
Yeah.
And those guys,
Mississippi.
Yeah, and they have a 100-day season. They're talking about, those guys are all about, they got a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
Just like we got a lot of numbers. On our side, you have North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And what's going on is,
I think
And
only
Jackson-
Florida has that in place. I think what's happening is the rest of the states don't have those people
closures.
those people in place, and so we can't have our own state by state
well,
council.
in the state of Florida, if you look at let's look at the East Coast. On Jacksonville, you are having to go further out to get to those ledges and those grounds for the snapper. In Miami, it's the opposite. It's a couple of miles. So what they're seeing is there's a whole lot more fish here and a whole lot less fish because there's more pressure in the south. Think about how many guys can go further out in Jacksonville as opposed to how many guys can go just a couple miles out. You can take a skiff and go catch snapper or fish in a couple hundred feet of water down in South Florida because of the ledge and the Gulf Stream. So that's part of what's going on. I had a meeting this week, and I can't go into much detail, but I was speaking with one of the guys who's on that council, and he is
South Atlantic Marine
and
Fisheries
he's
Council.
with us. He is very upset by this ruling and completely against it.
But unfortunately, his hands are completely tied
Bingo.
based on the way that the laws are written right now.
Right. And so I can't go into much detail because I only know so much, but FWC is working on an exemption permit. And so if that can pass, then that gives us more of a ability to keep these fish. But it's all going to go back to research. If you end up with this permit, if it does work out, the way it'll work is you'll get the permit and you'll provide the data. You still get the fish, but you'll have an exemption permit, exemption to that one fish law or 1 day, one fish deal to be able to discuss and help provide data. So when they come to, because it's all data driven, when they go to those next meetings, they can say, okay, we gave out X amount of permits, we caught X amount of fish in these locations. This is our real time numbers, because that's what in any industry, data drives everything.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the money if you don't have the facts to prove why you need it. And so we need those things to fall in place so that because let's be honest, how many of you guys are dropping offshore and catching red snapper after red snapper, or you're pulling up a red snapper and they're getting fed on the shark?
Yeah, and the sandbars and the bulls are eating.
You're having a hard time catching other species because there's so many of these red snapper that
And to kind of follow up on Roy's question there, what is happening at this time is that the recreational sector, you and I and all of the listeners, are allowed fish within state waters. Okay, so if you catch a red snapper within state waters and it's 20 inches or longer, you're allowed to keep that fish. The problem is on this part of the coast, there are virtually no places. There's one spot here and one spot there, but there's virtually no places that you can consistently do that. It's all sand. We just don't have the right depth and structure combination to have red snapper within our state waters. But in those couple of little spots, and there's some up towards Ponce, as a matter of fact, that you can actually make that happen. I've done it myself. It's a long run, and it's not something I want to do every day, but it can be done. So if you go out into federal waters, the second that you cross the 3 mile line, you are now under federal jurisdiction. State rules no longer apply to that red snapper. Now you've crossed into federal waters. Federal snapper regulation says snapper is closed. You can't keep snapper. So even if you did catch a red snapper in state waters, if you went to 3.1 miles and then went back inside of 3 miles at any given time, you are now illegal. It's now not legal for you to have that snapper.
That possession.
Okay, so that's problem number one. Problem number two is you go back to the dock and you've got a girl and she's sitting there with a clipboard, or a guy with a clipboard doing stock assessments. Hey, how many fish did you catch today? Oh man, we went bottom. Did you go bottom fishing? You go into federal waters? Yeah, we went into federal waters. Well, what'd you catch? Oh, we must have caught 20 red snapper. Well, did you catch 20? Did you catch 12? Did you catch 8? Doesn't matter. She wrote 20 down because you said 20. Okay. Now let's just say you said 10. I said 10 snapper. Immediately, she takes that data, sends it uplink, and South Atlantic Marine Fisheries and National Marine Fisheries Service, they get this data, and it says, okay, this person says they caught 10 fish. 4 of those are dead. They have a 40% dead discard rate. 4 of those fish in their data immediately become dead fish, whether they lived or not. Doesn't matter. Whether 8 of them died or not. Doesn't matter. 4 of them are officially dead, even though you released all 10 fish because you can't keep that fish. So what they do is they add up all of those numbers against what they're going to allocate to the recreational sector for the entire year. Well, if you caught 10 and I caught 10 and Paul caught 10 and everybody else caught 10 that day, 4 of those 10 were dead. You could have 4, 5, 6, 7, 800,000 fish that they're calling dead discards, and that goes against the allocation that was going to be given to the recreational angler. So let's just say that, just to make numbers easy, you got 10 straight days that everybody went out and caught 10 fish, and so now you've got, let's just say there was 100 fish caught, 40 of those fish are dead, and they were going to allocate that we're allowed to keep 60 fish for the year.
That's it.
That's why we have a one-day season, because you're allowed to catch 20 fish that day, and on that day, we're going to catch 20 fish. It's going to happen. So what did you catch? And when you come back to the dock and they say, okay, what did you catch today when you went offshore? We caught sandbar sharks. That's what you say. We caught sandbar sharks. There was no red snapper, no grouper. We caught sandbars because that's going against the allocation. So long story short, it's a messed up system that we're dealing with, and true data is the only way to fix it.
Yeah.
So you know what? We appreciate you guys and gals tuning in today. I wish we had another 2 hours because we got a whole lot more to talk about. Jonathan, I'm going to have to get you back on. You're such a great guest. How does somebody get a hold of you and watch your shows and get a hold of you for a charter?
Hey, if you want to go fishing, gocastaway.com for the fishing. If you want to watch the show, you can go to the website, thecaptainslogtv.com, or you can go over to Waypoint and download the app and watch it there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming in
Hey,
today.
it's always a blast, man.